Thank you, Rahul, for that great session. Tuning in from across the globe, allow me to introduce Mr. Chinmai Sharma, President America's RateGain, who will be talking about the Great Hospitality Reset. Chinmay is a seasoned travel industry professional with more than 2 decades of global experience in the fields of commercial optimization, distribution, strategic marketing, and technology. The stage is yours, Chinmay.
Great. Thank you, Shelley. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege and an honor to present at HICSA. Kudos to Manav and the organizing committee to pull off such a great event. We are travel and hospitality executives, so we always see the glass half full. So it's wonderful to see that we are getting the conferences started and people can meet in person. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it to India and New Delhi and one of my favorite conference hotels, Taj Palace. But I'm happy to be here virtually. So, and Taj Group as well as the Taj Palace has a special place in my heart. More than 2 decades ago, when I was about 10 years old, I used to be the revenue manager at the same property. So whenever the conference halls and the banquet halls are full, I still get that warm and fuzzy feeling. So please bear with me as I pull up my slides, and I'll talk about the Great Hospitality Reset, and hopefully we'll have some Q&A time as well. Wonderful. So I'll get started. I think hopefully you can see my slide. So I'll talk a little bit about what's going on in hospitality and how this reset is different than what we've seen in the past. I think a lot of us who've been in the industry for a long time have seen different crises happening at different times, different geographies, 9/11, financial crisis, SARS, etc. I think everybody's on the same page that anybody's hasn't seen anything like this before. So I think this is a good time to talk about the Great Hospitality Reset, how far have we come, and then talk a little bit about what we feel might be important as you go into the future. So my name is Chinmai. I'm based here in Dallas, Texas, and I work with RateGain. We are fortunate to work with all leading chains and brands and online travel agency partners, and that also gives us access to a lot of data. Hopefully we'll be able to give you some good insights today. So this is the theme of my presentation today, acknowledging, analyzing, adapting. So this operating principle is not very different than, observe, interpret, and adapt. It's somewhat similar for all the married people in the audience. Once you get married, you have to acknowledge the new reality, you have to analyze the new environment, and then you have to adapt going forward. So you all have done this, at least the guys who are married and the ladies. So you just have to apply that in this new environment. So I think acknowledging fact number one is that we're not part of one reset. This will continue to go forward. The new normal is that we will go through multiple resets. 2020, when we presented at HICSA, we spoke about the Hospitality 4.0 concept, the thought about connected traveler. We obviously didn't have a fair idea of what was going to happen and for how long. And since then, we've done multiple resets, 5.0, 6.0, 7.0. So I think the new reality is that you just have to get to this new uncertainty that's out there. And the hoteliers and the owners that will do well are the ones who get used to this new normal. The second fact is that the volatility will continue to force the resets. So I think a lot of variables will play into this. I think the COVID restrictions, the extent of the COVID vaccination, the regions, etc., how the travel patterns change. All of these are very new patterns. So I think using the historical demands, patterns, etc., will not be as useful as relying more heavily on recency. And then just keeping an eye on what's happening around the world. And luckily, we'll talk a little bit about technology as well and how it can make your life easier. And I think that's the new way forward. Talking about long-term certainty. It'll remain elusive. We work with Skift and a lot of other publications. This is some data from Skift on the recovery index. Luckily, after March of 2020, the numbers have only improved over a period of time. I am based in the Americas region. We've been very fortunate that at least for the last 6 months, we have seen a healthy recovery. The leisure markets have done tremendously well. So in a lot of key destinations, not only in the US but also internationally, leisure has outperformed 2018 and 2019 levels, which is very encouraging. But at the same time, we see that the leisure demand is slowing down as schools reopen around the world, and corporate travel and groups and conventions are still relatively slow. So at RateGain, we are fortunate to see a lot of this data, and globally across all hotel chains, at least the GDS and the corporate travel, we're seeing the average is about 50% of what it used to be. Even though the numbers are looking encouraging, I think it'll take some time for that to recover. In terms of groups and conventions, it's really encouraging to see what's going on at Taj Palace right now. We are seeing similar events in key cities around the world, which is very, very encouraging, but it's a very small percentage of what the previous business used to be. So a lot of groups are still traveling, but they're not spending that much. And at least in the Americas, the groups that are very active right now are sports teams, which are usually colleges, and professional teams, as well as religious groups. But they're not always the high spenders. So I think everybody's waiting for that business to come back. But the big focus on leisure is here to stay. And it's also a factor of how the consumer behavior is changing. So let's move to analyzing what we have. So the fact number one is travel patterns will become a lot harder to predict. I think a lot of key markets and destinations, I grew up in revenue management, so I think revenue management and forecasting has matured quite a bit. And at a lot of hotels and destinations, you could almost predict the seasonality with your eyes closed to a great, accuracy. But all of those are things in the past. I think the variables that determine a forecast are so many that you really can't do a good job without using technology and machine learning and artificial intelligence. Luckily, a lot of solutions are available now, which make it very easy to utilize those solutions to do a better job of forecasting, understanding where the demand is coming from. But this is just one example of what we saw in the Americas. So between some changes in the political scenario, the vaccine rollout, as well as removal of travel restrictions, there's a huge pent-up demand, and we've seen this across the world in different regions. US just announced that they're opening the borders to a lot of international countries. I think, except the Canadians, I think we have something against the Canadians, but most of EU and India, etc., is open now, which is great news. And we have already seen that activity in terms of international bookings on the East Coast markets like New York and Boston, on the West Coast markets like San Francisco. They have a huge amount of booking activity starting December into early next year, just because those bookings have started to happen. There's a bit of certainty now that travelers, at least the ones who are vaccinated, can move ahead. So without access to this kind of data at a global level, it's very hard for hoteliers to predict what's going on. The fact number two is that these restrictions will continue to evolve. So just like we saw the recent announcement of easing travel restrictions, a lot of these restrictions are also reciprocal, so it depends on what country does to another. So these things will continue, and luckily there are a lot of these tools and solutions available so that you can keep an eye on what really is going on. And I mean, this is just a snapshot of global activity. Even within EU, for example, each country behaves differently. Even in a market like India, we know that every city and every state might have a little bit of a twist, and all these factors are extremely important to understand. Because just opening a hotel and hoping for the demand to come in is not going to work anymore. The third fact is the brand preferences have been reset. I was at the Skift conference in New York last week. There was a big theme around changing consumer behavior, how the associates, the employees, the families are not tethered anymore. They're untethered, both for work as well as for their lifestyle. This working remote is the new normal. So people are not tied to a city, to a destination. They can pretty much work from anywhere. It is having a huge impact on cities, on destinations, on the quality of lifestyle, etc. And this is leading to a huge change in terms of consumer behavior and their patterns. So better value is one big part of it. I think more and more consumers are now open to try new products, and we've never seen this kind of trial before. So, spending time on the road, working remotely, being out in the nature and the outdoors, we've never seen activity like this around the world. And then more customers are driven. I think consumers have always been very demanding, and that's going to increase, unfortunately. So as hoteliers, we just need to step up and make sure that we deliver, because it's when people are traveling now, be it leisure or be it corporate, they're not traveling as frequently, but that trip better be quite amazing. And then the some other facts that which I think all of hoteliers have already also seen, that customers are becoming and guests are becoming more demanding. So this is some data that we got from McKinsey, and it just shows you that the consumers are becoming more and more unforgiving. Rightly so. I mean, as a customer and a traveler myself, I do expect certain things to be right, and now I think everybody's becoming more vocal. So I think the social media angle is increasingly becoming important, because you need to manage those channels. So one interesting thing from a going forward basis and from an adapting perspective is this changing loyalty. So as I said in my previous slide, customers are very willing to try new things. This is some data from Skift. It's mostly global, and we've seen that the loyalty contribution pretty much for all the major chains has declined a little bit. We can see it in the segment mix, we can see it in the channel mix, and it just goes to say that folks are changing their travel behavior and trying out new things. So this will definitely have an impact on management deals, on franchise deals. In the long run, it'll have an impact on the financing and the cost structure, etc., of investment deals, etc. So it's a really interesting trend, and we've never seen anything like this for the past few years. Then staying with the adapting theme, I think there's a big impact on the government restrictions and that impact on travel. But the good thing is that there's a lot of pent-up demand. People are dying to travel. They're willing to get out, spend money. In a lot of countries, the amount of savings that people have gone up significantly, and that money needs to be utilized somewhere. So I think the message there is that if you have good products and services, you can actually do a really good job of capturing that pent-up demand. And then the good news is that going forward, all the trends are pretty encouraging. Like I said, we are in travel and hospitality, so we are always diehard optimists. But going forward, all the booking activity, not only for hotels but also for vacation rentals, and then the searches for travel, these are all moving in the right direction. So we get a lot of data, not only internally but also with partners like Expedia. So in terms of search windows and search volumes, everything is moving in the right direction. Based on different geographies, the search windows are becoming more and more normal. And obviously the booking windows for international are a lot higher, but the trends are extremely, extremely positive. So we are hoping that this will continue to stay. So I would like to just end my presentation with a couple of slides about what are the challenges for the hoteliers today. So we spoke about the changing environment and how do you tackle that going forward. So none of the historical patterns hold true anymore. The segment mix, the channel mix has completely changed. The historical data is not as relevant. That whole debate of direct versus indirect is almost dead. I think you just want customers and guests at your hotel, and then you just have to do a tremendous job of ensuring that that guest becomes like a repeat clientele. And one big thing that we've seen with hotel owners, and especially with big chains, etc., is historically, a lot of technology was built in-house, and the opinion was that we do this better than anyone else. And we've seen a remarkable shift in how the big chains as well as online travel agencies and demand partners are tackling technology and bringing in specialists to focus on fixing technology, and then the hoteliers doing what they do best, which is taking care of experiences. So this future duality of both short-term volatility as well as long-term certainty or uncertainty is here to stay. And I think my parting words would be that for the hoteliers to be able to tackle this, you need to make extremely fast decisions. You need to understand what demand patterns are out there. You need to work with technology partners and the hotelier community as well, just so that decision making is fast. You are able to utilize all the factors that are out there in the environment, have really good visibility on what the future demand looks like, using as much data as you can, and then eventually, converting that top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel. How do you customize your content? How do you convert people? How do you give them great products and services so that they become, repeat clientele? So I will end there. And once again, thank you thank you to HICSA, as well as it's great to see all of you in person attending this event. So thank you very much.